Huntsville, Texas, death penalty capital of the Western world, where prison staff is preparing to put Murphy to death by injecting him with a deliberate drug overdose. During the next hour, KPFT's Execution Watch will air live coverage of the killing in Texas, the state that has carried out a third of U.S. executions. Execution Watch host Marlo Blue, criminal defense attorneys Larry Douglas, Pat McCann, and Meryl Pontier. Huntsville reporter outside the death house, Linda Snyder, general reporter Clinton Young, plus the possibility of a special interview with Murphy, recorded recently on death row. The Execution Watch for Jedediah Murphy begins.
Welcome. Tonight, the state of Texas ushers Jedediah Murphy into the death chamber. To our listeners around the world, thank you for joining us on this Tuesday, October the 10th edition of Execution Watch. I'm Marlo Blue. If you're tuning in for Thanks on KPFT Houston, they'll be back next week in their brand new time slot, Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Execution Watch is brought to you in part by the Clinton Young Foundation, and it is produced by a dedicated staff of volunteers. Please go to kpft.org and pledge your support to us now as we report live each and every night an execution is scheduled in the state of Texas. The live stream of this show can be found right now on our Facebook page as well, and we thank Houston Media Source, as always, for simulcasting. During tonight's broadcast, we will be giving you details about the case, including background surrounding the trial and conviction. We will have expert legal analysis, as well as live reports from Huntsville and breaking news regarding any last-minute judicial action. And we will hear from our newest reporter, who himself is a former death row inmate. So tonight, the state of Texas will execute Jedediah Murphy for the October 2000 death of 80-year-old Bertie Lee Cunningham during a carjacking in the Dallas suburb of Garland. He will be the sixth person to be executed by the state of Texas in 2023. Joining us first tonight is our reporter stationed just outside of the death house in Huntsville, Texas, activist Linda Snyder. But before we go to Linda, I want to remind our listeners and viewers that this is a live broadcast. And while we do our best to keep the background audio clean, it can get very loud and sometimes a bit difficult for our reporters to be able to hear us and to tell their story. So bear with us. Hello, Linda. Thank you for joining us. We are waiting for Linda to stand by and to hear us. As we do that, you can see that we have on our split screen of the Zoom, we have Linda Snyder and Meryl Pontier. Meryl, if we can't quite get Linda to hear us.
Well, I had to pick the rev up. So she came back
Linda.
on last night.
Linda.
Yes.
Linda.
And I drive to Livingston.
Linda.
Linda. I got 30. Take him to Livingston? Where they live.
Let's go to Meryl Pontier first, if you all don't mind, while we try and get Linda via the text so that she knows that she's on the air. Meryl, how are you this evening? So, and I'm also going to bring in Larry at this point in time. This is just the most amazing sequence of events. I can't really figure out what's going on. Can you explain to us what's happening? As we try to get them both on, let's go to Larry Douglas here in the studio.
Was that a question? Was that a question for me or for Larry? I wasn't sure.
I'm sorry, Meryl. It was for you.
Okay. I'm still kind of in shock. I did not think they were going to lift this stay, especially not like 15 minutes before 6 after the Fifth Circuit issued a stay. I'm kind of in shock. I've not seen this before.
We're not able to process it, so I would really like yours and Larry's input on this. This is just astounding. Larry?
Oh, I agree.
What do you have to say to us today?
Marlo, I'm also astounded. It seems we've never been in this position before that I can recall. Normally, we're waiting to see if there's going to be a stay. In this instance, there was a stay, and the stay was then vacated, which I thought it would not be vacated. I thought it would not be lifted, as we've already talked about, at least not 15 minutes before the time for that the execution was scheduled for.
Right.
And the filings seem very persuasive to me, such that I suspected that the stay would not be vacated, would not be lifted. But we're here. It has been vacated or lifted. So in the state of Texas, one filed the request to vacate the stay, and then continued to prepare for the execution as though the stay were going to be vacated. Their plan was, we don't want to be caught flat-footed if the stay gets vacated,
right?
And then we cannot proceed with the execution since we've already got the warrant to perform the execution. So they were being very aggressive in terms of trying to get this matter completed, and it surprises me to some degree that they would be that aggressive and that persistent.
Well, Meryl, we've been going back and forth with you most of the afternoon about this too. Besides being surprised, is there any precedent for this that either of you know about?
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
Not that I know of.
And it's not a totally, I don't know the precedents here in Texas, but this kind of legal proceedings, it's pretty normal if you want to try to get something done. That is, the request for the stay, was very well reasoned at a time when it should have been filed. And so the reasonable thing for the state to have done, if they want to get the matter completed, would be to file a motion to vacate the stay. They didn't have to, but that's a fairly aggressive position, like I've told you before. That's a fairly aggressive position for them to take. And when you look at the filings, the granting of the stay and the leaving the stay in place to get the issues that were still outstanding just made a lot of sense to allow the stay to remain in effect. But again, you have litigants. One takes one side, one takes the other.
Right. Anything to add to that?
Yeah. Well, it's like Larry says, normally you wait for a stay at this time, not to lift a stay. And I think, if I remember correctly, we've seen this with the federal executions. I remember one case where they actually lifted a stay after 6. And I remember being so in shock of that. And other than that, I've not seen that. But I remember with the federal executions under Trump, I've seen that happening, and I remember everybody being just as much in shock then as I guess we are now.
Right. I can understand that a little. Let's see if we can go to Linda Snyder in Huntsville for a moment. Linda, can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
Thank you very much. So, you're our reporter there. You're right outside of the death house in Huntsville, Texas. Can you tell me a little bit about what's going on there? Are you all, how many people are out there with you today, first of all?
There's probably, probably about 30 people.
That's a good number for that many people for protesting it. And
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the scene and what people are saying there, if you don't mind.
Well, we're just all confused about how the courts are going, because it seems like it's like they're in an argument if they're going to vacate it or not vacate it.
Right.
And so it's confusing to all of us.
You actually are friends with Jedediah, is that correct?
Correct.
And you know his wife. Can you tell us a little, have you spent some time with us? Can you give us a little bit of indication of his state of mind right now? or
Well,
this morning?
he was in real good spirits today when I talked to him on the phone, and I was at the hospitality house here in Huntsville, and I was with his wife, and she brought the phone to me and told me that he wanted to talk to me, and he seemed really happy, and I was surprised, because I expected him to be like most of the guys when this happens, they're really sad, but he was upbeat. He said they fed him really good. He had this real big juicy hamburger, and he said it was great. And I don't know, I was just surprised. He was really upbeat, and I could tell when his wife was talking to him too that their conversation was real lively. It wasn't sad like I would think it would be. It was, they were laughing and talking, and just like they would normally do any other day.
Right. And
Yeah.
so you actually have seen his wife. What is his wife's name?
It's Vivian Swartz.
So you've actually been in contact with her, and she is there in Huntsville.
All the time. I mean, her and I are friends, and I spend a lot of time with her when she comes down. She has an apartment here that she's had for years, and she, stays in that apartment, and then she, flies back home to North Carolina.
Wow. And how long has she and Jedediah been married? Do you know approximately?
I don't know approximately how long they've been married, but it's been quite a few years.
Yeah, it's been a while now for sure.
Yeah, and she's they're very much in love.
Oh.
And it's really a sweet relationship they have.
For our listeners who may not be familiar with KPFT's The Prison Show, Linda and Danny Allen are a group called the Death Row Angels. And you are really one of our conduits to people who are on the row. And approximately how many people do you correspond with on a daily basis, Linda?
Well, probably about 10. I get about 10 calls every day from different ones. And I just love the guys. I mean, they're human beings. They're, everybody thinks of them as being monsters, but they're not. They're very, very, they know they've done wrong, and they know that, they really changed. And I just love visiting with them. They make me feel really good.
Well, we know that it's on record that Jedediah has said that he is extremely sorry for what has happened. We've certainly heard that enough. And
yes.
I'm glad to hear that you believe him. And that's
yes, I believe him.
Tell us, for those who don't have the visuals that we have, tell us what signal you will be looking for to let us know that the execution has started.
We would look back here, and when we see them walking across the street, then we know that it's going on.
And are there any other signals that you're specifically looking for that you'll be keeping an eye out for?
Not really, because the guards just stand here. They don't move. They don't say anything. We just have to keep watching that door over there.
Right. I know there's often a very aggressive groups of people against you all who make it a little more difficult for you to do your vigils. Is that happening tonight?
Yes, and they didn't block the road. They never blocked the road off, so cars are driving through here, and some of them drive real fast. It's kind of scary, but this is where we have to be, in order to protest. They've got everything, with ropes and everything, where we can't go in, any closer to the door.
Well, thank you so much, Linda. Please let us know when.
I will.
Thank you very much. That was Linda Snyder. She's an activist. She is our reporter in Huntsville, and she will let us know when the execution is moving ahead. Let's go back now to our panel, to Larry Douglas, our chief legal analyst. Tell me, and to Clinton Young. It sounds like Clinton Young is also joining us. Hi, hello, Clinton.
But if you're in the background, excuse me, I'm driving a double pump, 18 oil field equipment, 24-wheeler actually. But look, I'm not surprised because Alito's over the Fifth Circuit. And so, I mean, you know, it just, things ain't going to be like they used to be, a lot of times, right? And so, but again, nothing the folks do really surprise me anymore, but especially the AG's office involved in it.
We
But
see.
yeah, it's I imagine that's an emotional roller coaster, right? Normally you see like a district court give a stay, and then the Fifth Circuit take it away, or the CCA will take it away, but it's not so common for the Fifth Circuit to actually rule in somebody's favor, and then the Supreme Court go against the Fifth Circuit because they're notoriously so conservative.
Yeah, conservative. That is exactly the word, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like normally they overturn the Ninth Circuit the most because that's considered the most liberal circuit in the U.S.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court's been fairly conservative for the last 30 years or so.
Do you all think we have a more aggressive attorney general in the state of Texas right now than in past times?
And look, all the stuff that we got away with because the House didn't do things a certain way. Plus, it was a stacked case regardless, right? My lawyers were the ones that prosecuted that case. And so the hearsay laws and things like this, and there was a lot of stuff that couldn't come out. But I think Tim Paxton's gonna be emboldened now. I mean, he was unhinged before, and so now he's done beating impeachment. I mean, he's just gonna be that much more aggressive, if at all possible. I mean, more than he already was.
Right. Clinton, did you know Jedediah?
Jedediah? Did you ask me?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I knew Jedediah.
Can you tell us
I know him shortly after I first got there.
Tell us a little bit about him.
Oh man, he was cool, man. He was real creative, right? Super smart, well-read guy, right? Like we listened to Jeopardy and played Jeopardy, and I mean, Randy Halpern likes to say he could beat me, right? But that's not true. But Jedediah and Rick Rose, they give me a run for my money, right? He, like I said, he wasn't what you consider dangerous. I mean,
well, that is the question right now. Do you think he would be a future danger? I mean, that's really the question at hand right now, right?
No, I wasn't, right? I mean, he was chill, right? I mean, he didn't, if he got in trouble, it's just for little miscellaneous things, right? Nothing ever major. He never had any assaults or use of forces, or he wasn't starting fires and flooding and things like that. But he was on level one. Vast majority of the time he was there. I mean, except he had a disciplinary record for petty things.
Can you please explain to our listeners about the different levels? Clinton, can you please explain? Can you please?
Yeah.
But then you gotta know how to hit that mute button, sweetheart.
Linda.
Yes.
Mute it.
Mute button.
Oh.
Mute button, darling. But explain what disciplinary level is.
Yeah, please. We don't really understand.
Just if you get a rule infraction, then they punish you even more than you're already punished by being on the death row and being in solitary confinement and all that stuff. Basically, they minimize your recreation. Depends what you go for, level 3 or level 2. They reduce the amount of visits you can have. You can't have commissary, such as like food. You can't have your radio. You can't have typewriter, things like that.
Right.
Like the little bit of stuff they give you that you can enjoy on level 1, you can't have none of that stuff. Basically, just stamps and state products. I mean, it's just, I guess to put it in the most simplest form, it's jail and jail.
Jail and jail. That's does not
That's
sound good. It really doesn't. Let's. So okay, we are looking at the same issue now. We're still waiting to hear what's happening, not only with the Supreme Court but in Huntsville itself.
So hold up. Did the Supreme Court? This all I'm confused by here. Okay, I'm looking at the time.
Yeah.
And it's 6:20.
Yep.
And so, has no witnesses crossed the road?
Nothing has happened yet. No witnesses have crossed the road.
Maybe he just didn't want somebody witnesses to excuse her, but I mean, the Supreme Court listed the stay, right?
They listed one of the stays, but there.
Oh, we got 2 stays?
Yes. And herein is the confusion, and we don't.
So he got to stay on. I think so. What you're saying is he got to stay on 2 different issues.
Correct.
Okay, and they denied one, but they're still looking at another.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So did the state get lifted for the DNA issue and the future dangerousness?
I believe it was for the drug issue that I believe.
That's my understanding also.
Yeah. That.
But we're still very
okay.
confused.
Look, I mean, the political setup that we have right now as far as the judicial system and the way the Fifth Circuit is, I mean, I'm not trying to take away his hope or anything like that, but that drug issue is dead in the water, right? I mean, so many people done try to litigate it over and over again. And so, I mean...
Well, I'm not sure that this wasn't something different. Clinton, I think this was slightly different because they are saying that a fire that was near the pharmacies may have impaired the drugs. That's my understanding.
That is correct.
Yeah. But see, Alito was one of the people that ruled when it came to the execution drugs. Whenever they brought up lethal injection, they tried to say it was cruel and unusual punishment. And the line of question that him and Scalia had about that, they asked, was hanging unconstitutional? Was this unconstitutional? Was that unconstitutional? And so you could tell by Alito's thinking based on the questions they asked in that case. And it all revolved around, so what? I mean, that's their line of thinking. That's not our line of thinking. I agree. I mean, if they're going to kill you, it's supposed to be at least in the most humane manner possible because they're supposed to be better than we are. We are supposed to be the immoral ones, the murderers and things like that on death row. And so they're supposed to adhere to this higher moral code. And so they're supposed to treat us better than, say, how we treated our victims supposedly, right? And, that's the whole idea of monsters ball, the last cigarette, the last meal, and things like that, the final visit, is to say that they hold a higher moral ground. So the idea that they would execute somebody in a cruel manner in modern times or one that with excessive pain is supposed to go against that moral code. But Alito being over this circuit, and you look at his responses to things, the opinion he's given, I mean, it's just not. It'd be different if it was Kavanaugh or maybe one of the other justices who are also conservative. But anything comes out of Thomas or Alito's mouth, I ain't got no faith in them at all, right?
Right.
Especially when it comes to the death penalty. I mean, it's just sad but true, right? I mean, it's just, the way Scalia said, he's dead now, but he said, no innocent person's ever been executed in America. And so Scalia and Alito were, 2 peas in a pod.
Can you give us...
I'm just saying that, like, look, I mean, hopefully somebody can come up with something different, but I'm just saying, like, the unfortunate nature of who we have over in the Fifth Circuit, everybody on death row knows it's not going to benefit us in any shape, form, or fashion. Like.
Especially in the state of Texas, eh?
Yeah.
I
Especially coming out of Texas.
That's right. Well, you know, everything about Jedediah was a little different, so I guess we really shouldn't be surprised that this is a little different.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I am thrilled to hear that
Sure
Jedediah.
words, never spoken.
Yeah, exactly. For our listening audience, I do want you to know that if the execution does go on, we have a video that we will not be able to air in its entirety here on Execution Watch if that does happen. And if it does happen, we will post it on YouTube so that you can see Jedediah Isaac Murphy's last words and last interview with KPFT. But as we have made a promise to him that unless we knew that the execution was being carried out, we will not air that interview at this time. So stay with us. Let's talk a little bit more about how we got to this point. Larry, talk a little bit about this case. Why is Jedediah there?
Right. And Marlo, regarding the video, as we know, we don't air the video, and we hope we don't ever have to air the video.
Hope you never see it.
But in this case, you have been referring to him, you called his whole name, Jedediah Isaac Murphy. About as Jewish a name as you can get. And historically, within the Jewish community, particularly in biblical times, that the names are extremely important. And a name like Jedediah, you don't see them walking around every day. But this is a name that in the Bible was one of the other names for the wisest king, Solomon. Okay, Jedediah meaning beloved of the Lord. And Solomon being shalom, like peace. Isaac, okay, that's the other name. We know who that is. So he's one of the very few Jews on Texas death row. I think Alan Dershowitz said that there might be two. But it's unusual for a person of Jewish background to be in this kind of situation. It's a fairly, like all murders, it's a very, very tragic story. He was a troubled youth. While he is Jewish background, but he spent some time in foster care where he appears to have been abused, and he got on drugs. And he had some minor criminal activity he got involved in. Burglary of a motor vehicle, burglary of habitation. Nothing of great violence until, okay, and that until was October the 4th, back in 2000, where he encountered a tragic encounter between him and Bertie Cunningham, an elderly lady, 79, 80 years old. For whatever reason, he carjacked her and drove her around Garland, Texas, a suburb of Dallas. Had her drive him for about 30 minutes or so, just driving around. Then he tells her to get into the trunk. Before she gets into the trunk, he shoots her. And then he starts driving around by himself, spending using the credit cards that she had, buying alcohol and cigarettes and just hanging out. He shoots her, but she doesn't die. So he drives outside of Dallas County to Van Zandt County, about 75 miles away, and he dumps her in a lake, in a stream. And she actually, the cause of death was apparently drowning. So this was in 2000. They tried him in 2001. Got to trial really quick, mainly because it was a fairly simple case. He confessed to everything when he hadn't confessed. And he was found guilty by a jury. So having been found guilty, the issue is this is a capital murder which the state can decide whether they want to pursue it as a capital or not. But commission of a felony offense, murder occurs, they can decide, and they did decide in this case, we're going to pursue this as a capital and seek the death penalty. So having been found guilty, the issues on the penalty phase is really life or death. And for them to seek death, they have to show the critical issue is future dangerousness. Is he going to be of a future danger? So his background was probably not sufficient to get death on the small cases he had been convicted of. But while the case was pending, one other lady comes forward and says, "That's the gal kidnapped me years ago." And I remember, but she couldn't identify him initially. But by the time she's testifying at the punishment phase, she knows who he is. This is the person who kidnapped me and drove me around the same way. Another woman comes forward and says, "Yeah, he kidnapped me too, but I managed to get out." The first lady says, "No," and she testified at the punishment phase. The first lady says, "He kidnapped me, and I was able to jump out of the moving car at a high rate of speed. And I was just so petrified. I still have nightmares right now." And she testified very convincingly to the jury. Now that testimony was so compelling that the jury was extremely moved by that. And there's a strong belief that kind of testimony. This is on punishment. All prior bad acts, whether they have been prosecuted or found guilty of, can be brought in. You stole a bicycle from a kid when you were 9 years old. That's a bad act. They can bring that in. And his counsel did not strongly refute all that evidence in terms of those unproven allegations. And in one phase of the appellate procedure, the counsel even came forward and just fell on the sword and says, "Look, he confessed ineffective assistance of counsel, saying I was just burnt out, and I missed a lot of things and so forth." But that claim did not succeed. So he gets convicted, and a few months ago, earlier this year, the case law changes over time. And there are cases that the court is looking at saying the law now is that DNA evidence, seeking leave of court to obtain DNA evidence is allowed on the guilt-innocence phase of the trial, but not on the punishment phase. So his lawyer said, "Well, there's a case that came up right now. The court is looking at that. So if the court is looking at that, why don't we look at it in this case? Because we can disprove now with DNA, convincingly disprove with DNA, that he was not the person who did the kidnapping. In fact, we've got records of him being on his job. We've got timesheets where he was at work at this time. Well, the court looks at that and says, well, you had those timesheets. Well, you could have had those timesheets back in 2000, 2001. But court, we could not have the DNA. So we need time. Let's get a stay. And the DNA evidence is the critical thing. If we can get that DNA evidence, that'll be convincing proof that he did not commit those extraneous, unadjudicated offenses. And that was what gave me the most hope when I read over that. So that makes a lot of sense for them to, particularly if that is true, if the DNA disproves his guilt of those unadjudicated offenses, then I think he's got a real good shot at getting this thing overturned. Well, this is what the U.S. Supreme Court today decided, that we're going to not lift that stay. We're not going to vacate the stay. So the stay, we did vacate the stay, okay, to allow the execution to continue. And that's the thing that concerns me the most. And the other thing, I was reading an article that Alan Dershowitz got involved in the matter, and his concern was that we're looking at future dangerousness, but the future from 2000 is now. He's been in TDC for 20 years. Not been a problem at all. Confessed, I would submit, repented. He became a practicing Jew. He has been working with other inmates, getting them to turn their lives around. And all of that is being pointed out now, that, what harm would it do to at least take a look at the DNA to see this very persuasive evidence of future danger. The unadjudicated cases establishing a pattern of someone kidnapping elderly ladies in the same fashion. And in this case, he killed an elder. He admits to all of that, confessed to all of that. And that disappoints me considerably, that we are apparently going to put this man to death under this set of circumstances.
For those of you who are listening on KPFT, thank you for joining us. This is a special broadcast. It is Execution Watch. We are broadcasting live from the Houston Media Source studios here in Houston and from Huntsville, where we have our reporter on the scene. We are waiting to hear if the execution for Jedediah Murphy has started. And if you are tuning in to listen to Thanks, please check back next week. It will be in its regular time slot at 6 p.m. What happens, and I'm going to ask this question to all three of you, when lawyers working on capital punishment cases get burned out?
You get executed. That's what happens. I mean, people on death row don't have the best lawyers. I mean,
Okay, I'm on.
Hello. Let's go right now to Linda Snyder in Huntsville. Linda, what can you tell
Hi.
us? Hello.
Nothing is going on. I mean, there's still, no one has crossed the line, so they still have something holding.
We will check back with our producer and in the control room. Thank you so much, Linda. Just keep on letting us know what's happening, okay?
I will.
Thank you so much.
Marlo,
Yeah.
it's just, there's so many horror stories of guys down there on the road. They end up coming up with great evidence that would have helped them in trial, but because their lawyer made a mistake, then they're going to execute them because of a lawyer's mistake. I mean, there's just case after case after case after case from and if you try to do something yourself, like you're in court and you try to stand up and speak out, then the judge admonishes you, tells you sit down and shut up, or he's going to take you out the courtroom, and all this, that, and the other. You try to file pro se, they say it's hybrid representation. And so they put all these rules in place to keep us from speaking up for ourselves, especially when you have a court-appointed attorney. They say that you don't have a right to an attorney if you're choosing. It just has to fit the criteria. And so you have these attorneys, they do horrible jobs, former prosecutors, et cetera. Jerome Govitz, attorney out of Houston, he sent more people to death row in Texas as a defense attorney than he did as a prosecutor. And so it's something that people don't really come to appreciate as far as the general public goes, right?
Well,
know,
it's another
pushing
aspect of it for sure, Clinton, because we don't see that day-to-day grind. That the public will see that it sometimes takes a prisoner 23, 25 years to go through the systems, and they don't understand from the legal aspects of why it's taking so long in their minds,
But
or the
it's not the
burnout.
defendant's fault.
No, of course not.
When I talked to the House of Representatives, I brought that point up. They always want to try to pass these laws, and I talked to a couple of them one-on-one about this. They want to. The DA's Association in Texas goes to them and tells them, hey, we need to do something to speed this up. These guys are on death row for 20, 30, 40 years in some cases. Well, it's not our fault.
Right.
It's prosecutors doing misconduct, lawyers doing inadequate jobs, our judges sitting on the case.
Right.
Rick Rose, may he rest in peace, was out of Houston, Texas.
Right.
He sat in Harris County District Court for 18 years.
Yes, he did.
He wasn't complaining about that, of course, but I'm saying that, it's also, it's frustrating to me because, it's so arbitrary. If he would have been from a different county, he might not have got the death penalty. Or the prosecutor might have sided with him on appeal, and he could have got released.
Well, there's no doubt that Harris County has always been sort of a conduit straight into death row and to the execution chamber. It seems to be something we have taken great pride in for many years. So, well, I hope we change all that.
Yeah, something sick. They take pride in killing somebody, right?
Right. Right. So let's, again, we're talking a little bit about how different everything about this Jedediah Murphy case really is. But he's always been different. He was different when he got to the row. He's the only, well, I guess Randy Halpern is Jewish as well. And
hey, he said there's only two Jews. Two Jewish people on death row.
I think that's right. Yeah.
That was an article. That was an article by Alan Dershowitz.
Only two, huh?
That's what Dershowitz says.
Okay.
We'll attribute it to him. He has some plot.
People on the road hear me say that. My little laugh about that, right? Like they get what I'm laughing about. But yeah, Randy Halpern's the other one. Jedediah Murphy and Randy Halpern. There has been a couple others though. Doug Selman and Max Sopar.
Mm-hmm. Max. Well, but is it true that Jedediah is the only one who's ever been bar mitzvahed in the TDCJ?
I don't know about that. I know that.
I'd like to find out if that's true.
I don't know because Max Sopar was there in the 80s.
Yeah.
And he probably had his in the Max Sopar most likely had his in the approval.
He probably had his at the right time. Yeah.
Yeah. But they but yeah, man, when you get a say like that, and I've been around people that got a say, and they take it away. It's an emotional torture, is what it is. There's some guys that had execution dates. It had 7 or 8 different execution dates.
Right.
That's torture, right? They put you through all that. I get that CDC is going to go through the steps because the execution has to take place before midnight or the warrant expires. So that's why CDC is going to take the condemned man to the Walls unit because they only have so much time and things like that, right?
But the warrant is just a piece of paper, and we're talking about a person's life.
Yeah, believe me, I understand that completely. But that piece of paper carries a lot of weight. Unfortunately,
let's check back in a little bit.
All these legal opinions.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Trees have been killed for less. Linda Snyder, if we can get you back on just for an update in Huntsville. Let's go to our reporter, Linda Snyder, who is in Huntsville. Have you seen any activity outside of the death house?
No activity at all.
Nothing. No one's.
Nothing.
So
No.
I believe you've got Gloria Rubik there with you. Have you guys discussed what would happen? What do you think is going to happen next?
I think he's probably going to get that stay. I think they're probably going to keep the stay is what I think.
So, well, we have about 10 more minutes of broadcast time here at KPFT Execution Watch before we have to hand it over to Nuestra Palabras. Please let us know if anything, if there's any movement or if you come up with any theories. We would appreciate that too. What's up, Clinton?
Used to, Marlo, before, like if they didn't have, if the Supreme Court has not issued an opinion,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was by like 11 o'clock, and CDC will automatically stay the proceedings.
Okay.
10:30 or 11 o'clock, the CDC will stay the proceedings. They did it in a guy's case. If I'm not mistaken, it might have been Rolando Ruiz.
I don't remember that one.
Because they say they need time to go over everything, like to go through the procedures and account for if anything goes wrong and stuff like that. But again, it's a different administration now. So,
What do you mean by a different administration?
well, I mean, there was a different executive director back then. You had a different.
Are you?
I think, you had a different attorney general, and he wasn't much better, than Abbott. But that's what I'm saying. Is just all the people, the whole chain of command for TDCJ was different, and so I don't know what if that policy is still in place or not.
Okay. Meryl, you've been awfully quiet tonight, and I know you always have some good things to tell us. What's on your mind? Meryl.
You're talking to me, right, Merlot?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. No, I was listening to Clint talk, and he's right that defendants always get blamed for, attorneys who mess up at trial. And when I was listening to Larry talk about this case, and he said that Jedediah being convicted or sentenced to death because of these extraneous offenses that he was not convicted for. And, you always see when someone gets arrested for, kidnapping, or you see that in sexual assault cases too, that suddenly other alleged victims stand up and say, oh, he's done that to me too. And you always have to, as a defense attorney, approach that with great caution.
Right.
Because more often than not, they're wrong on that. And they think they recognize someone because that person is on TV in, an orange jumpsuit, arrested and being accused of horrendous things. And then they probably have been through the same, but then they think, oh, that person is also the person that I could never identify before, but now that I see him on TV in that context, I'm sure it was him. So when I heard that, it's like, man, as a defense attorney, I would make an issue of that right away. And now it turns out that there's questions about his guilt for all those extraneous offenses. I'm like, man, whether or not you're in favor of the death penalty, we're going to execute people in this state based on a future dangerousness theory related to offenses that person is not being convicted of and may not have committed.
Right.
And to me, I mean, that's just insane. Something's wrong with that system. And even if you're in favor of the death penalty, that would be a good debate to have. And Linda said there were some people at the Huntsville unit right now not protesting, but in favor of the death penalty. I've talked to those people before, actually, last time I was there. Right. And I asked them, we actually had a very decent conversation for about 15 minutes. And I asked him, like, why are you here? out of interest. I'm just interested, curious. Why are you here? And they said, well, we just, there's all these people protesting. We just want to let everybody know that we agree with what's happening here. And I said, okay, well, that's your right. I'm not going to try to persuade you to not be in favor of the death penalty. But I did tell them a thing or two about my experiences with the death penalty. And I told them about Clinton's case and other wrongful convictions. And they were actually open to listen to that. And they said they were going to look it up. Now, I don't know if those women are still there tonight. If I was there, I would definitely try to talk to them again because, I think if you talk to each other and show some mutual respect, we might be able to still teach those people something. So that's what's on my mind, Marlo.
Hey, Clint, how do you think we can humanize the people on death row a little bit better? What should we be doing? Clint. Well, let's see if we can get somebody else's opinion on that. How should we...
He's muted. He needs to unmute himself. I think he's muted. Clint muted himself.
How should we humanize those who have pending sentences of capital punishment? What should we be doing to make this not this cut and dried Hollywood feeling that everybody seems to have? There is no 11th hour. The governor is not going to call. How do we explain that these people have spent years and years behind bars and are different people from the ones who had the worst days of their lives when they were accused of these crimes?
Well, first of all, Marlo, my concern right now for Jedediah is my hope that somehow I think that the DNA issue on the future danger is a critical one that ought to be viewed, ought to be reviewed, and ought to be reviewed in this case. This man should not die without the opportunity to get that done. The second thing is when a person is charged with capital murder, that's about as huge a defense burden on any defense lawyer. And they appoint, most of the people don't have the kind of money that is required to defend a capital murder case. In Harris County, they will appoint a capital certified lawyer, normally a second chair. But bringing capital murders are really, the state brings the power of the entire institution against that person. They've got the lawyers, they've got the investigators, they've got on hand right there. Whereas the defense, I think, we need to have an institutional. I was pleased to have the public defender's office, but I don't think we need a public defender's office for most of the offenses in Harris County and most of Texas. But an institutional capital defense organization is really something that I think would be very helpful to be able to root out all of the possible defenses without having to go back to the judge and be asking for money from time to time, and just having to, if you pick up a capital murder case, if you're serious about doing a capital murder case between two lawyers, you have to shut your practice down.
Yeah.
It's just too much for one or two lawyers to do.
Yeah.
And that's the problem I see with the way we defend capital murder. And this lawyer saying, I'm just burned out, is understandable, because handling one of those cases will burn a lawyer out. It just takes all of your time. And if you're doing other cases during that same time, which most lawyers have to do that if you're taking appointments,
Right.
That makes it difficult for you, even with your best of intention and best of skills.
Right.
Makes it difficult because the state has, again, the whole institution to bring against you, and right now they're trying to put a man to death for
They're trying
extraneous,
really
unadjudicated offenses, and that's the primary reason he's there.
Yeah, that is the primary reason that he is there, and the primary reason why we are here, although we are coming to an end right now. Thanks, everyone. That is the close to this very unusual edition of Execution Watch for Tuesday, October the 10th, 2023. Our next scheduled broadcast date is Wednesday, October 29th, as Texas prepares to send William Spear into the death chamber in Huntsville, Texas. Execution Watch will cover the state-sanctioned killing beginning at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time with our live news coverage. A special reminder to those in the Houston area and friends of both Execution Watch and the Prison Show, today is the last day to RSVP for the Celebration of Life to be held on October the 22nd for legendary parole and post-conviction attorney Bill Halpern, who passed away in August. We welcome your opinions on social media and beyond. Go to executionwatch.org to learn more about the death penalty and executions in the state of Texas, and please subscribe to our mailing list. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search Execution Watch, and past shows on YouTube. We can now be found on Twitter as well, and we'd appreciate the follow. Our thanks again to the entire Execution Watch crew. Legal analysts Larry Douglas and Merrill Pontier, reporters Linda Snyder and Clinton Young, video director Mark Pirtle, technical director Otis McClay, engineer Howard Reynolds, social media Sarah Sheridan and Elise Bench, executive producer Elizabeth Ann Stein. Just a reminder that your support is critical to keeping this broadcast commercial-free and on the air. Please pledge your support for Execution Watch at kpft.org. And if you're listening live right now on 90.1 FM, stay tuned for Jazz in All Its Colors with Sinbad. We will post, if the execution goes through, the video on our YouTube channel. This has been Execution Watch. I'm Marlo Blue. Good night.
State of Texas, leave Willie alone. The government killed the most. Got a problem, death row. Ever wonder where money goes? People of Texas, don't you know? Some accused are innocent. Some get good lawyers, most don't. State of Texas, killing machine. Don't you know they're killing people? 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 We're not giving up. One's too many. Will 1,000 be enough? One we're not giving up. One's too many in 1,000. People of Texas, children of God. It's insane. In Jesus' name. Where's all that religious passion? State of Texas, make a fist. State of Texas, hypocrite. Don't you know they're killing people? Don't you know they're killing people? Don't you know they're killing people? Don't you know they're killing people?
Hello, Jedediah. How are you?
I'm good.
I'm Marlo. I work with Houston Media Source. I work with KPFT. I'm the program coordinator over at
Okay.
KPFT.
Yes, ma'am.
How are you doing?
Hey, as good as I can get,
Yeah, right?
right? I mean, I really don't know how to answer that question. You know, I
Yeah.
always listen to the execution watch and curious about how someone's going to ask the question.
Well, this is your interview. So what question do you want to start with?
Well, I mean, I mean, I don't know. I mean, just ask me whatever.
Okay, well, let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
Okay, tell me about yourself. Tell
Okay, well,
me how you got, how you did a lot of the same things that I did. You went through the foster system.
Right.
What was your life like before you got involved in the foster system?
Well, I was with my grandparents. There was 10 of us in a small house. My dad was a violent man, and so he was abusive to my mother, and he was abusive to us kids. And my grandparents would play the mediator in a lot of it, but he was just completely out of control. He drank himself to death when he was 40.
Mm.
So I mean, he was completely out of control human being.
Yeah.
And so for me, witnessing that, when you see your mother get knocked out, you don't think, well, my mom got knocked out. You think, my dad's killing my mom. You see this all the time. And so as a kid, I would rock. I would panic. And so for me, I got I have some learning issues that are akin to autism. And so what I would do is rock when things got too much for me. And so what started happening was, when I would rock, I would leave where I was. Mm-hmm. It would be like going black. But what I didn't know was it was dissociating from the situation. I didn't know what it meant. I thought I fell asleep. And the only time I would come back is when someone touched me. And I would come back. And so a lot of my early life was a series of panic and dissociation, panic and dissociation, panic, dissociation, through abuse, through trauma. I know all this stuff now because I'm a grown man, but I didn't know it then. I didn't know what was going on. My life was just a chaotic place. And so, my dad drank himself to death. I ended up in foster care. My grandparents died.
Were your grandparents your moms or your dads?
They were my dads, yeah. My mom was going to be killed by my father. And, I mean, that was a very real thing. And so she took her 3 kids from a previous marriage and left. Mm-hmm. And, she just was gone one day, and, we didn't understand. And then, when everyone else just kind of died in a pretty short amount of time, I ended up in foster care. And,
how old were you when you got to foster care?
6. Yeah.
That's young.
Right. And then, I tell people all the time, when you go through that situation right there, you don't have time to process like the gravity of the whole situation. It was just, hey man, am I going to be safe? Am I going to be with my brother? Where's my family? Yeah. And so those first moments when I went into the foster care system were terrifying for a kid like me. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know who I was. You don't know who you are until you know whose you are.
Right.
And I didn't belong to anyone. Yeah. And so if you don't belong to anyone, then you don't belong to anything. And I mean, I had no family anymore. Everything that people told me was true about life was wrong for me. That family would stay together. No. That your parents would protect you. No. That adults wouldn't hurt you. No. None of the truths that everyone else was so used to mattered to me, in my life. I mean, they just didn't apply to me.
So did you have any of your family with you?
One brother and one sister. My brother's 17 months older than mine. I have a sister who's younger, but we were separated, Yeah. But, I always tell people this story. So I would look out the window because in my mind, I would say, my mom's going to come get me. It's a mistake. My mom's going to come back and get me. And so I was looking out the window one day, and this man asked me, hey, man, what are you doing? And I told him, well, I'm looking for my mom. And he said, well, if you're good, she'll come back. And I really believed him. And so, man, I didn't need a lot of food. Because, in my little mind, by being a nuisance was a problem. So I didn't eat a lot of food. I didn't talk a lot. I stayed out of everyone's way. I was quiet. And she didn't come back. And in my world, I wasn't good enough to come back for her. And that man saying that one thing to me colored everything after that. And, I'm sure he didn't mean the way it was taken by me. But every failure that I had the fingerprints of what happened in that place. And I mean, I've had many opportunities in my world, and so I mean, I don't. My life is not just one tragic story. So there were many things I did good or that I got right, but there was many of them that I got wrong. And the reason why is because when you grow up in a home around a family and you're sitting around the dinner table and you innately understand things that your parents are going through, you listening to the way they solve problems, you see the structure of a family to communicate with one another. You learn to solve problems by just sitting there. And when you take all that away, then I had no tools in my toolbox. And who gave me the tools? Were kids like me. Kids like me.
So, when did you realize that things were different for you when you compared yourself to others?
The rocking.
The rocking.
So this is a compulsive thing for me. And so, I became a target. And I was a small kid. And so when things scared me, when things got too loud or whatever, I would rock. And it went from me rocking back and forth to me literally being in the fetal position, rocking side to side. And, you in a place where that's a predatory mindset, you got to understand I was in foster care in the 80s, early 80s. It wasn't nothing like that. You know how bad it is now. Well, imagine what it was like in the 80s. And so I become a target, which created more rocking, which became more of a problem, and it just fed and fed and fed and fed until, I was just constantly under the gun. From 12-year-old kids, I'm fighting 12-year-old kids. I'm 6 years old, and people always ask me, why my reactions are sometimes the way they are. Because when you learn the wrong way to handle emotion and handle a threat when you're 6 years old and you're fighting a 12-year-old kid and you're losing, you're going to become one of two things. You're either going to become a victim, or you become strong enough that you're not a victim anymore. Do you want to be a sheep, or do you want to be a wolf? There was nothing in between there. So I learned to become the wolf. And as a smaller kid, I'd pick up a fork. I'd do anything I could to keep you from harming me. And sexual abuse was rampant. I saw what it did to people, what happened to me. And so once you get to that point of your life to where the most intimate parts of who you are abused by people who don't care anything about you, and no one does anything, then you have to fundamentally change the way your reaction to these people. And there's only one way to stop those kind of predators, and that's to become someone they don't want to mess with anymore.
Right.
And that's what I did.
Let me ask you another question about this, and I'm sorry if this is traumatizing.
No,
I don't mean it to
it's
be.
not. No.
I really don't mean it to be. But you did move from a foster care situation into an adoptive parent situation. Right. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I was adopted when I was 7 years old, along with my brother. And I don't want to get into specifics of it because it'll be something that somebody just debates. So I'm not going to get into what happened or what took place. But it was an abusive situation, and me and my brother were both removed by the same state that put us there. So I went from a broken home to foster care to 4 years of abuse to foster care. And, when we made it that trip back to foster care, I lost all hope. All hope. I was suicidal when I was 10 years old. You see TV shows and Superman and Batman and all these comic book heroes, and those were the guys I was, in my desperation was saying, hey, come help me, man. I need help here. And, it didn't happen. It didn't take place. And so many of the funny things that people would never do, I did because it was all I had.
Can you give me an example?
Okay, well, like when we would run away, the police would take us back because in the 80s that was deemed a family problem. And so I could relate to the officer. When you suffocate someone, there's no marks. It doesn't leave you bruised and beat up. But the trauma that does to you it's like drowning repeatedly drowning. You never get used to it. You're never going to get used to starving for oxygen. And so that was happening. And so you get to a point where you tell the police, hey, man, this is going down. And he's like, hey, man, you're just a throwaway kid, man. I'm the problem kid because I'm adopted. So how they marginalized us back then was to say, well, he's a troubled kid. He's a troubled kid. And so I would, like I said, Batman, Superman, firemen, anybody.
Were they your heroes?
I would say these, well, if they would have saved me, they would have been.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a lot of knowledge about where to go from here because I went to the one people who were supposed to help us.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And so one more little piece of my hope broke away. And I quit, even hoping for something different. So when we went back to foster care, I never wanted to be anywhere else again. I'd rather be in foster care because if that's what adopted was, I didn't want to do that again.
Right, right.
And then, I think it was like 9 months later, I was with another family.
How did you get lucky enough to get away from the abusive family?
The state removed us.
They realized
They
it was happening.
came in and removed us. I mean, it was a bad situation. But when I went back to foster care with my brother, I was on a playground one day and a teacher, she was there's more than a teacher, but anyway, she was there teaching like the phonics program to people.
Yeah.
She saw me on the playground. Well, actually, someone saw me and said, "Hey, man, your son's on the playground." And she's like, "No, he's not. He's in school." And so she came out and seen me, and I looked like her son. And so she asked him, "Hey, who is this kid and where's he at?" Now, she told him I was in the foster home, which was down the road. And so they came and wanted to take me home for the weekend, and I told them no. I said, "No, I'm not doing that. I don't know you. You're a stranger to me." And it was literally my brother who pulled me to the side. I was like, "Dude, what are you doing? You got to go do this." And I was like, "Well, if you're not going, I'm not going."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Nah, don't do that. Go eat their food. Get all you can get because that's the mentality you're taught. Because you do so much of just you're struggling to eat, you're struggling for safety, you're struggling for clothing, you're struggling for attention, you're struggling for love. So you just get all you can get and bring it back with you if that's all you got." And so that's what I did. I left to go there and eat their food, and for a weekend, and ended up being into an adopted situation.
When you would wake up in the mornings, what would you think?
I was scared I was going to go back to the system every day. That family busted up too when I was about 16 years old, and it did not end well because I went with the father and the other son stayed with the mother. It just didn't, everything broke apart. And by that point right there, I was, I'd been through so many hurricanes in my life that it's like, it's just another thing for me. And so I was going to be on my own, and whatever I had to do, I wasn't going back to foster care. But that fear I never knew that you could be unadopted. I didn't know that was a thing. And I know so many kids never even get adopted. And here I'd been adopted twice. And people say, "Oh, you were so fortunate." And hey, listen, it is fortunate. But I was also adopted and abused for 4 years and put back in the system and adopted again, and it broke up and I was on my own again. And it was just a series of these things since I was 6 years old. So, yeah, I understand that in theory, it's a fortunate thing. Just like, hey, if you jump out of an airplane, your parachute doesn't open and your body slams to the ground and you live, people will say, "Hey, you're good." No, you're not good. Because all that trauma that you had hitting the ground, it probably doesn't feel good to you. And that's the reality of what my life was like.
Mm. So tell me a little bit right about now what happened. You're 16 years old. You're back in foster care. You're getting ready to get aged out.
No, by 16, I was on my own. Yeah. I didn't go back to foster care.
What'd you do then?
My dad had an RV on the lake, and I lived there in that RV on my own. My dad would come and go, back and forth. He did business and different things, and I had a girlfriend in another town, and so I largely just stayed on my own. And you would think it'd be like every 16-year-old's dream to have an RV on a lake, and I mean, in many ways it was, but I never could be in one place. I had to be moving all the time, because I didn't possess the skills to sit by myself, or I had to be doing something. Back then, I just had to be going and going and going and going and going. And that's what I did. I mean, but I was also, blacking out for 4 hours at a time. And, once again, the blacking out part of it all, That didn't stop when I was a kid. It just translated into something that, once you start dissociating, which is the term they use, once you start doing that right there, the path to it gets shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter until any little stimulus that's could be challenging to you, you're not there anymore. And you come to fully dressed sitting at the kitchen table and you're talking to somebody about something you don't know anything about. How do you explain that situation to somebody? And see, I called them blackouts. I didn't know what they were. And to this day, it's hard to understand, but I always relate it like this. A soldier that gets hurt in war, he loses his arm, will tell you he can still feel it. And you believe him. But you can't see it, right?
Right.
All right. That's exactly what happens to me. The things I see and feel you can't see, but you don't believe me because I'm mentally ill.
Well, what is the difference between
There's no difference.
Mentally ill and
there's no difference. In reality, there is no difference. But it's the way everything is colored. When you slide into that group, then everything you say is suspect. All your emotions are iffy. All your truths are, probably not. You're completely marginalized by this block that you got to fit in. And everything that they view and the treatments and the way they see you and your stimulus is all coming from this one block. You can't get back to this one now. So I'm not to be believed because I'm ill. They label you that walking in the door, you're ill. And, so it's hard for me to relate what life is like for me or what life was like for me then. Sorry for hitting this mic. I keep hitting it every time.
It's okay.
All right.
It's all right. That's technology. Is
Right. Well, I'm not used to having one, obviously.
Would you say that the blackouts have been happening more as you progressed in age?
They were unbelievable. Way worse.
Yeah.
Way worse. I'm not saying that they were more. I used to be able to control it.
Yeah.
And it's like anything else that you don't understand. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew it worked.
Yeah.
And when those times would happen when I'd come to in a mall and I don't even know how I got there. And I would play off a whole lot of this stuff because you gotta understand, I didn't have a lot of relationships with people for very long at all because I didn't want you close to me. And so all the normal that I was seeking was getting further and further and further away from me. And the more that I talked about what was happening to me, isolated me more from what I wanted most, which was to belong to something, to belong to somebody, to be understood just like everyone else. And so I didn't relay a lot of this other than to say I was blacking out. And they attributed, oh, well, he's drinking or, oh, he's doing drugs. But here's what people get so wrong about this whole thing. By me drinking, I could stop them because I could change the stimulus coming towards me. And so I didn't drink to black out. I didn't drink for fun. I drank because it altered my reality just enough that I could be me. And that was the only solution I had at that time. And once again, I didn't know what I was doing. And what ends up happening is that's a cycle that just feeds on itself, feeds on itself, feeds on itself, and gets worse. It got to the point where I totally lost my mind. I got scars. I've tried to kill myself. I OD'd. I was in the ICU. I lost my mind. And I was sent to mental institutions.
When you were having these, and let's just call them episodes because that's essentially
That's
what they are,
yeah.
right? Did you ever come out of them and feel like you could relate to anyone on a one-to-one basis?
No, because I didn't know anybody that was happening to.
Yeah.
So much like I didn't know how to explain it to someone else,
Yeah.
I'd never heard anyone having this problem before. And so to me, it was like being sexually assaulted. You don't go around and say, hey, my name's Jim. I've been sexually assaulted. You don't relay those kind of things because they're so traumatic to you. And it never gets casual. And so in a casual conversation, I don't come and say, hey, man, guess what happened to me yesterday? I was in me for 6 hours. And people, if I said it, it would be ha, 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 They don't understand.
Just the joke reflex
Well,
to
because
try to...
because it's so abnormal and it's so hard to believe that I lose people in the nuance of it. And there's no easy way for me to explain it to you.
Of course.
There's no relatable way. And my only option is to just try and fail and try and fail and try and fail. It's like I tell people, even my explanations are abandoned. I don't know how. And I've sought it. I've read 2,500 books in this prison. I've graduated 7 classes, taken 2 anger management classes, correspondence courses. I've sought the answers to these problems. And the reason why I am who I am now is because I had a woman who loved me here. That's why. All the medications that I've taken, it was love that fixed me. And, you know, when I say that to people, you know, it's kind of like, that's nice. That's exactly what happened. When you have all your little pieces of your life's puzzle sitting on the table, just raked off into the floor, and you don't even know where they're at. And then this woman comes along and she tells me, hey, I love you. And I believe her. It puts one piece on that table. All right. And just like any puzzle, if you take one of those corner pieces and you put a piece to it, it's easier to start putting them pieces together. And what started happening for me was when I would break, my pieces stopped sliding off my table. So it got quicker for me to put them back in place. Until the next time I broke, it was a few less pieces. It was a few less pieces. Now, I still have problems. Don't get me wrong. I'll probably have them the rest of my life. I don't know. I didn't think I'd come this far, to be perfectly honest. But it was that, knowing what I had with my wife, that led me to a better place that I can have this conversation now. And if that's not hyperbolic or, romanticized, that is the truth.
So you would say that of all the things that have helped you the most to get through this hardest and, let's just say, worst period of your life, there's nothing good about where you are,
No.
for sure. That would be your wife?
My wife, my kids, my family.
Say something to them.
Well, I love them, obviously. A lot of people come to prison, they lose everyone. They lose them all. They end up with nothing. They don't have anything. They struggle. I never had that. I had people that loved me the whole time. And everybody asked me, like, what's the secret sauce? Or, hey, how'd you do this? I didn't deserve any of it. I didn't do anything. I was just me. It's just the people who knew me loved me. And even when I was broken and messed up and made mistakes, horribly tragic mistakes, I confess to this case because I never meant to hurt anybody. I'm not here professing innocence about anything. The victim was somebody I didn't even know. I wake up with this crime every day. And so my point is, having those pieces that other people lack was my time to understand what it's like for what maybe you lived in your life. It came to me late. But by getting it, and by opening up myself to say, hey, these people love me. These people won't hurt me. They won't go away. Because my wife would say to me all the time, I love you, I'm not going anywhere. And she proved it to me. Because I didn't believe her. I didn't believe anybody. I didn't believe me. So once I started to believe that was possible, it opened the door to more possibilities. Because if you close all those doors, then you don't never open yourself up to any change, because change is not real to you. What's going to change?
So you would say that her love changed your life?
It completely changed it.
And opened you to...
Right.
What would you say the word is?
The possibility that I could have a normal life.
Yeah.
And people say, well, you don't have a normal life. And I don't have a normal life. But I've been in worse places than this prison.
Yeah. That's...
And there's sometimes, I think there's people that don't have that truth. Mm. They come from probably a good life that made a mistake, and I'm not blaming anything that happened. I'm not trying to deflect or anything. I own my mistakes. I confess to my crime. I didn't try to get away with anything, because the man that committed the crime is not the man talking to you today.
Right.
When you say that to people, they're like, oh, what does that even mean? Well, I was formally diagnosed with multiple personality syndrome while I was in the world. I didn't come up with it here. I told everyone what was going on with me. I was committed to a mental institution 4 times. I was in and out of treatment all the way until I came here. I didn't do any of that because it was fun. It wasn't a game for me. I was successful and broke, and successful and broke. And all these things weren't some game, it wasn't fun. I lost my family. I lost, so much stuff. I lost my, lost my freedom.
Did you self-commit, Jedediah?
No, I was taken to the first mental institution via an ambulance. I completely lost my mind. I mean, I didn't know what was real anymore. I was seeing things constantly. It's, you know, it's hard to imagine it.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's fine.
What do you want? Let's just say worst case scenario, state of Texas executes you.
Right.
What do you want people to know about you and remember about you? What can you do to help other people?
That's right. Well, my goal is to live. I mean, I want to live, not because I love prison, or not because of any of those things, it's because if you're religious at all, so I found God late in life, and once again, I always prayed to Him when things were bad, and forgot Him when things were good. God really transformed my life, and it's the other piece to this whole thing, and I'm a Jewish person, so all the things that I would see in other people when I hear people talk about religion happened to me. I lost my addictions, drinking. I don't even cuss anymore. These are things I've struggled with my whole life, and then suddenly they're gone. And so it showed to me that, there's room here for there's something I can give to other people. And I'll never be a formerly trained minister or anything like that, but I know what it's like to be broken, and I can help people that are broken. Because who better to relate? Just like I was saying a minute ago, who better to relate to someone who's been where I've been than someone that's been there and come back? And so it's a phenomenal thing that happened to me, and I don't know why it did. And like I said, I didn't deserve it. But if anything that I want people to know about me is I didn't quit. I didn't quit. I could have killed myself many times, and I thought about it thousands of times. But I didn't want to make my situation any worse than it already was.
Right.
I didn't want to hurt my family more. The people that invested in me, the spiritual side of it all. I didn't want to give up on God because God didn't give up on me. And so, you get to a point in life to where you have to try everything, because if your life doesn't matter to you, then it's never going to matter to anyone else. And so I just tried to embody that and do as much as I could with what I had. And eventually, things started to change for me. You know what I mean? So it's possible. It's possible. If it was possible for me, I'm not an exceptional human being. I'm just a normal guy. But these things happen to me because when I run up against the wall that stopped me, I didn't stop. I went around it. I found a new way. I kept trying things. And so, that's what happened for me. There's a psalm, and I memorized this. And the reason why is because of one verse in this whole thing, and I saw God do this, and it so mesmerized me that I had to do it myself. And so the psalm goes like this. It's Psalm 34. It said, I will bless the Lord at all times. His name shall continually be in my mouth. My soul makes his boast in the Lord. Let the humble hear and be glad. Oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together, because I sought the Lord, and he heard me and saved me out of all my fears. Those who look to him are radiant, and their faces shall never be ashamed. Because when this poor man cried, the Lord heard him and delivered him out of all his trouble. Because the angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him and delivers them. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed are those who take refuge in him. Oh, fear the Lord, you his saints, because those that fear him have no lack. The young lions, that's me, suffer want and hunger, but those who seek him lack no good thing. Oh, fear the Lord, meaning, come, O children, listen to me, and I will teach you the fear of the Lord. What man is there who desires life and loves many days that he may see good? Keep your lips from evil, your tongue from speaking deceit. Turn away from evil. Do good, seek peace, and pursue it. Because the eyes of the Lord are toward the righteous, and his ears are toward their cry. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to cut off any memory of them from the earth. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord, nah, man. See, I'm rattled, man. I can't even think of it. I know the whole thing, but I'm so emotional I can't even think of it. But the one verse that I wanted to say the most was that the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and save the crushed in spirit. That verse right there is what I embodied. There was no one more crushed in spirit than me. And just like that verse says, at the very end of that verse, it says, afflictions will slay the wicked, and those who hate the righteous shall be condemned, but the Lord redeems the life of his servant. And no one who takes refuge in him shall be condemned, and that's me. So these people can't kill me. They can't do anything to me. All they can do is stop this process. All they can do is create more victims out of my family. And they can snuff out any testimony that I could have or any help that I could give by killing me. And I don't know. I mean, they have that. They have a right to do it, but by doing that, you still any chance of me helping anyone.
Let me ask you one more question. We're really kind of out of time, but
Right.
I'm going to ask you anyway. What advice would you give to the people who you know on death row?
Stop hating one another. I mean, people think this community is about love and, we're all in this together, and we're not. People back here slander one another constantly. I mean, they want so much for, to be given a second chance, for someone to judge them fairly, and they don't judge people fairly at all. I mean, that's not that's something I've done. That's something we all do. But it's such a cliquish mindset that we stay stuck in these fights against one another, and the whole time these people are killing us.
You've been here a long time.
Yeah, right.
Is there any normality for your life?
My normal day is so drastically different from what a normal day is for you that when I wake up in the morning, at least I'm whole. And to me, that's normal now. So where I live and my circumstances and having to wait and just all the things that come along with prison don't even matter to me.
Yeah.
Because I would have killed myself, and now I won't.
Yeah.
And so, at least now my life is mine. And I can pour back into my family with the time that I have, or hey, I can do something else for somebody that's in my position. And I mean, should the state kill me, then I mean, it wouldn't be the worst thing that happened to me.
You want to say any last words to?
Hey man, I love all the people that, that have, like I said, poured into my life, my family, my girls, my wife. Like I said, I didn't earn any of it. They gave it to me freely. But I can tell you right now, as a living, breathing human being, that love will fix all the problems. Love. I mean, don't hate on people. Give a man an opportunity. Be part of someone else's redemption. Don't be part of their destruction. I mean, I think the world would be a better place if that was the truth for everybody.
Thank you, Jedediah.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for coming.
Absolutely.
All right.